Afternoon. In my hands is a pair of glasses. And when you look at this pair of glasses, it could cost anything between 200 rupees to 50,000 or even more. Now this is an opportunity, but let's say that this glass is 50,000 rupees. Not everybody can sell it. And as a buyer, I'm not going to go to every place to buy it. If I want to spend 50,000 rupees, the ambience, the equipment, the technology that you must possess, if you don't have it, I'm not going to buy it from there. So it's a very small talk that I'm going to be giving today. And so the first step, I think, in the whole thing is to change this concept of, is it an optical shop? Or is it opticals? I hate this word. Or would you call it a dispensary? Now there's a huge difference between all three. In a shop, you are the customer, or your patient then becomes above you. In a dispensary, he buys what you have prescribed. And I think that's a fundamental difference between the two. So the existing scenario is that you can either lease out a part of your space. There are enough people who are willing to do this. The advantages are there's absolutely no headache in it. Somebody does the stocking, somebody does the management. You have nothing to do with it except just write a prescription and then they do the work and give you a percentage. The disadvantage is that there is absolutely no control on quality. And remember, if somebody is willing to pay you a fair amount of money, he's obviously got to make money from somewhere. And the only way he can do it is either to dilute quality or overprice the product. A family member could be managing the whole store. The advantage is there is a certain amount of cash in the industry. And your patient doesn't know whether a frame is 100 rupees or 1,000 rupees. And somebody could sell a frame for 1,000 rupees and bill 100. So you will get 100 and that staff member pockets 900. Hire suitable staff and to professionally manage the whole thing. But in this case, your involvement or somebody in your team, I was listening to a couple of the lectures earlier, some member of the team then has to systemize it and manage the whole thing. So there can be, as of now, as I understand, two types of situations. Either some of you have not yet started a store or a dispensary. Some of you have already started an existing facility, have an existing facility and you've reached a plateau and you want to try and increase your business. So let's go back a little bit and say, firstly, should you have a dispensary in your practice? Why not? Because you have an existing loyal client base. And most opticians today suffer from lack of footfall. For them, it's a question of how to draw more people to come in with a prescription. You are the ones issuing the prescription. You already have this client base. Your patients love you, and they will do what you ask them to do. Is it profitable? Definitely. Is it worth the effort? That is the question. Third, it actually completes all the services that you offer. It does everything in-house, and it also helps in a lot in your CSR activities. The negatives are that sometimes it's very difficult to retain patients if you have a dissatisfied patient. A patient who spent 30,000, 40,000 rupees on a pair of glasses and it doesn't work, comes back for troubleshooting and you don't have the adequate knowledge to be able to sort that problem out. It does create a problem and you have a potentiality of losing a patient. There is a certain amount of effort. There is no way you can make money today without effort. Unless, of course, you're Dr. Senthil, who tends to work with his mind. And I think that's a good job. I need to learn from him. There's a certain amount of time and effort that you need to spend. You need to organize space. You need to invest a certain amount of money. And staffing. So, every one of us is interested in making money. How do you make more profit? One is to increase the volume. That is, you sell more number of glasses and increase the volume. The second is increase the average price of your spectacle, which is a lot easier to do than increasing the volumes. The other is control your expenses and control inventory, which is perhaps the toughest task that you will ever have. From the management perspective, do not imagine that if you write 100 prescriptions, that all 100 are going to make glasses with you. International standards are 60%. In any good ophthalmic practice, 60% is about the maximum of your patients that you write a prescription on who are actually going to make glasses with you. So if you have these figures with you, strive towards 60%. There are people who will obviously maybe do more than that, but on an average it's 60. Inventory control again is, don't try and please everybody. I've suffered from this myself. Many times I have a patient who says, oh, I want this piece, and I end up spending a whole lot of money. I buy 10 frames, and out of which only 1 is sold, and the balance 9 stays back with me. So realize that there are some people you cannot service. So identify the profile of patients that you want to target and specifically stock up for them. Do not compete with discount stores. You are going to lose. Invest in equipment and in training your staff. To my mind, the most profitable part of a dispensary is the lens part of it. Again, I'm a practitioner. I run a diagnostic setup. For me, client retention becomes primary. And I find that we don't make that much money on frames, but we make a lot more money on lenses because it's something that you buy and you sell. And quite often, I get my money even before I have to pay my suppliers. And on the other hand, if I buy frames and one frame doesn't work, the next time a customer comes in, I find it difficult to give a similar frame to a customer because I know it's failed and I don't want to lose a client. So you end up with a lot of dead stock. On the other hand, lenses is where I feel a lot of the money is. And for example, progressive edition lenses. A lens like this, this is not a top-end lens, but this costs about 35,000 rupees. Good lenses can even go up to 95,000. Now there is money in it. I'm not denying it. So progressives can go from 2,000 rupees up to 90,000 rupees. Now this is an area where everybody wants to get into. It's an area where the maximum amount of per spectacle profit lies. But it's an area also which is, it's like a minefield. There are tons of materials that are available today. So if you can just tell a patient, if you realize that his lifestyle is walking in and out of, let's say he works in a factory, you just tell him go in for a photochromatic lens. Your lens, which is 3,000 rupees, straight away becomes 6,000. It's become double the cost. It's just one word from you. Coatings. I find far too many people today wear spectacles without anti-reflection coatings. 99% of our prescriptions go with anti-reflection coatings. Now, a spectacle lens which is 600 rupees, the moment I put an anti-reflection coating on it, the cheapest is 1,500. And it can go up to 4,000. And are you doing a bad job for your patient? No, you're actually giving him superior, better vision. Today, there is a whole lot of technology in lenses that has come in where you can give customized lenses to a patient for the same prescription, depending on the frame, how the frame sits on the patient. The lens is individually crafted for him to give him phenomenal vision across the surface of the lens. Whether he sees from this corner or that corner, there is a lot of difference. Now again, this requires a certain amount of instrumentation, it requires knowledge, it requires expertise. And customized lenses where a standard -3 with an anti-reflection is 3,000 rupees, this is 14,000 rupees. The other new thing in the industry is what we call as high energy visible radiation damage. Today, your intraocular lenses are also yellow tinted to protect the retina from blue light. We have spectacles today which have got blue blockers in it. So many kids today are in front of, we've seen, recently I had a patient who came to me, she's 19 years of age and she's got an ERM in one eye and she's amblyopic in the other. I've never seen a patient with an ERM at 19 years of age if there's been no uveitis or no history of anything. So is using our handheld devices and LED-based devices causing damage to the retina? There is ample evidence to say yes. Can we protect it? Yes, we have Blue Protect lenses today. Zeiss has got it, SLR has got it. You name the company, they've all got these lenses. Sports glasses are available. Sunglasses is a separate field altogether. You have polarizers, you've got polarized progressives. Ladies today have more than one pair of shoes. Gents have more than one pair of shoes. Why do we have only one pair of glasses? Why can't I give 2 separate pairs of glasses to people? So The whole thing starts from the prescription, because somebody has to prescribe the lens. Ideally, that person is you, because you're the one who decides and the patient trusts you. The other option is to hand over the prescription to a person whom I call as a lens consultant, somebody who is adequately trained. He will cost you a certain amount of money, but he will also generate a fair amount of profits for you and take away a certain amount of headaches away from you. So in a regular practice, I would say the flow should go something like this. You have a practitioner who gives a prescription. Now, you might say, if you have the adequate knowledge, for example, in my clinic, this is what we do. When I see a prescription, I generally decide which kind of multifocal, for example, a patient should be wearing. Now, I might say a fourth generation lens is good for this patient. Now, that depends on the patient's prescription, depends on what he is wearing in the past. Now, for example, the problem with progressive addition lenses are, it's a piece of plastic. Now, there are markings on it which tell me whether what you're wearing is a Mercedes or is it an Ambassador. And if you are without the knowledge of this and you prescribe an Ambassador to a person who's wearing a Mercedes, when he wears the glasses, your prescription may be perfect, but he's going to say, I'm not comfortable. And when you troubleshoot and look at the spectacles, you'll say nothing is wrong with it. So he leaves your practice, and along with him, his family and friends leave your practice, which is to me the biggest threat in starting up a store and in managing a store. So what we do is we normally say, we give a prescription, I give a prescription to a patient and I say, I want this and this is the minimum that I want. Ethically, that's the right thing for me to do. My sales staff, their job is to say, do you want the lenses made thinner? Do you want them made photochromatic? Do you want an anti-fog coating on it? Now, a lens that I might prescribe is 10,000. What they sell might work out to be 20,000. Now, that's his job, not my job. He's going to offer other options to the patient, which I will not offer because I think it's unethical for me to do that. Yes, I know I want my patient to see better, and with a particular variety of lenses, I know he'll see very well. That's my job. I don't sell, I prescribe. The selling job is done outside. So the selection of a lens should take place before the selection of a frame takes place. We are not in a shop. In a shop, they sell you a frame first and then decide what lens to put into it. If you're a practitioner, I think the better system would be to decide on the lens first and then figure out what kind of a frame do you want around it. Then comes the step of processing, which depends on your suppliers. Then comes quality checking, which is your job again, and then delivery, and of course, collection of the cash. So I'm just going to put out two prescriptions here, and I would like a little bit of audience participation on this. This is a 48-year-old patient who walks into your clinic. He's had a minor change in refraction. This is what you have prescribed. Would you give him a progressive, considering the fact that he's already wearing a progressive? Patient is already wearing a progressive. This is your current refraction. There is a minor change in refraction in the left eye. He's developing a little bit of nuclear sclerosis, so his refraction has become slightly more minus in the left eye. Would you prescribe him a progressive? Those who say yes, sorry? 6 in both eyes. Would you, all those who would prescribe a progressive, please put your hands up. He's already wearing a progressive. Would you give him something else? Okay, so I say, how many of you would not tell him to change from a progressive to something else? Okay, so I think you're a little careful on this one. If you give a progressive to this patient, he will end up seeing double. The reason is that if you look at this prescription, is this light working? Okay. All right, my pointer is not working. If you look at this prescription on a vertical plane, the right eye is a plus power and the left eye is a negative power. So when he goes down in a progressive, he will end up with a base up effect in the right eye and a base down effect in the left eye, resulting in diplopia. Let's say you have a patient number 2. Again, minor change in refraction, same age, 48 years of age. Would you give him a progressive? Yes? No? Okay, I guess people are being careful again. So you've got a +1 with a -3 cylinder in the right eye, and the left eye is a -1 with a -1 cylinder. So you're going to say, plus in one eye, minus in the other, you should not give a progressive. This patient, it's a perfect prescription for a progressive. Because along a vertical plane, it's a -2 sphere in both eyes. Now this is where your optics part needs to be upgraded, because this patient will do exceedingly well with a progressive, whereas the previous patient will not. An uncomfortable spectacle is a potential loss of many patients. And this is the biggest pitfall when you start your own practice. The facility on its own, just because you set it up and don't expect it to make profit, it's not going to work. Don't do half-hearted measures. Either don't start it or do it properly. So I've put together a few slides just to show how things should work in the clinic. Create a merchandising plan. Profile the kind of patients you want to target. Look at all your patients and say, I want to target this demographic. Based on that, do a feasibility analysis. Look at how many prescriptions are given every year. Based on that, what will be the projected volume for your dispensary? Take the 60% factor and then stock according to that. Please get somebody to purchase for you. Whenever I purchased for my own clinic, we always ended up making losses. Over the last 10 years, I have not handled purchase at all. I only look at figures and decide how much of a purchase we should do in a year. And now we are actually beginning to make some profits on frames. I'm terrible with a business management perspective. So I get someone who's going to be a store manager to manage the place. Some of these roles can be duplicated, and you need somebody who can handle your sales. The design of the thing should be easily accessible. It should be easily visible from your reception, should be a part of the patient flow, should suit your patient profile. Don't expect to sell this pair of glasses if you're going to have a small desk with a glass top and 100 rupee spectacles in that, along with one Mont Blanc frame or one silhouette frame. It is not going to sell. On the other hand, if your target audience is to sell an average spectacle at 3,000 rupees, that's perfect. I've seen doctors where they have actually a small panel behind them. After they finish refracting the patient, they actually take this out and they put a frame on and sell it. I've seen that happen. Suits them very well, suits their clients very well. But if that's the profile, you're not going to get the big ticket ones. I've seen people put a small counter on the corner, which is fine. But I think you can use your wall space today. There's tons of space on the wall. We have wall-mounted displays which are very easily accessible and gives you a lot more visibility. It should not look like it's an afterthought. It's like you saying that you want to set up a cornea department in your clinic. Would you just hand it to any ophthalmologist to do it? You wouldn't. You would get a cornea specialist to do it. You would hire the right amount of equipment. You would buy the right kind of equipment. You're not going to do it without a topographer. So it should not look like an afterthought. It has to be purpose-built. The frame displays are several varieties. You have open frame displays. If you walk around the place today, there's plenty of people who've got highlighted backlit counters. You've got modular systems. There are backlit systems. There are many things that can happen. An area I find a lot of people make a mistake on is lighting. It doesn't matter if your display is very good or no, but the lighting should be good. A few pointers. Don't put a mirror behind the frames. It's terrible to do that. A white background is better because it shows the colors of the frames a lot better. Avoid overcrowding frames. It doesn't matter if you've got 100 frames in your clinic. It's better to have 100 frames well displayed than 200 cramped together. Wherever there is expensive frames, leave a little bit of breathing space around it. There should be some form of order in the frames. Don't put them haphazardly. You can put pediatrics in one section, sunglasses in one section, expensive in one places, whichever way. But there should be some kind of an order in the way that happens. Another thing that I would like to do is, when you do design your display, try and put some color scheme or something to it which makes it look like your own. So that tomorrow when you do decide to open up another one in another hospital, we were talking about scaling up some time back, it's the same look, same color scheme, same design that goes. It helps when you want to expand later. It should look like it's owned by the practice. Your patients trust you. It shouldn't look like it's been outsourced. It has to be yours. It should have your touch and feel to it. Inventory is probably the toughest part. It's the place, I remember for years when I started my practice in 91, my auditor every year would end up and say, you have to pay so much tax, and I would be very happy because if I have to pay that much tax, I've made another 70% should be my profit, right? I would never find the profit. I would be like, I'm actually borrowing to pay the tax. And then we would discover that I'd invested all my profit into stocks because I was buying indiscriminately. I've made so many mistakes. Please, please control your inventory. I know shops that exist in Nariman Point in Bombay. They do 30 lakhs a month. That's a lakh a day. You know how many frames they possess? 500. 500. That's all that they have. But they will recycle those frames. They will only stock 500 frames. Target your clientele very, very specifically. Don't try and please everyone. Ideally, whatever stock you've got, you should be able to turn it around 4 times. That is, if you sell 1,000 frames a year, 250 should be your stock. This is the target I have never been able to achieve, but this is an ideal target. So I want to talk about a little bit about stock turnaround. So if you want to turn your stock around not 4 times, but 3 times, let's say, the calculation system is something like this. So let's say you give about 4,000 prescriptions a year. Now at a 60% conversion rate, that is 2,400 spectacles that you need, or frames that you need, a third of this is 800. So if you have 800 frames with you, you should be able to rotate, you should be able to sell 2,400 spectacles a year. So that's your stocking value. Invariably, I find, me included, that we are beginning to start achieving these kind of targets now, but it's taken me 25 years to do it, is when we are selling 2,400 frames, my stocking is 3,000, which is waste because that is money from your pocket going into a stock, and it's not gold. It is not going to say the same value. It is going to depreciate. After 3 years, it is junk. And this stock values is applicable to all categories of frames. So you can split the frames into price-wise. Every time do an analysis and say, it looks nice to have 40 frames of 10,000 rupees each, but at the end of the year, if you've only sold 10 frames, it's not worth it. All the money is just gone into stock. So please keep an analysis constantly. You should have the same equation for children's frames, different sizes, rimless, whatever you want to do, describe it differently. In terms of suppliers, please don't get too many suppliers, because in my experience, for example, I used to have one supplier who used to come to me. Then he branched off into 3 separate brands, so they became 3 suppliers. Then his salespeople branched off and started their own companies, so I ended up with 15 suppliers from one person. And I had about 20, 30 guys like this when I started, so I've ended up with 100 suppliers. It's difficult to keep them happy, but try and keep minimum suppliers. You can negotiate better prices and payment terms. Is cheaper better? I'm not so sure about that. Look at the patient profile and then decide. And remember, if your patient is price conscious, then you have a problem with online. In terms of equipment, when I started off, we used to have this humble PD rule which used to cost 5 rupees. Then it went on to a PD meter, which today costs 50,000 rupees. Currently, we have profilers. And these profilers cost anywhere between 7 lakhs. And last year in Germany, Zeiss gave me an introductory discounted offer for a visual profiler which cost 25,000 euros. Needless to say, I didn't buy it. I don't have the money for it. But this is how fast things are changing. And people in India are buying these products. So if you're going to look at that market, I'm not so sure if that's really the market we're looking at. A patient who's going to buy a Merc is not going to buy it from us. But he may buy a top-end mid-level car. And I think we're pretty happy with it. A Merc today, for example, a Merc in terms of me, is you can go for a Lindbergh frame which is 40,000 rupees, put in a customized progressive in it which costs another 60,000 rupees or 70,000 rupees. It looks good, but it's very difficult to get that clientele. And they already are going to extremely high-profile places. So in my opinion, that's an area even I don't want to target. But there's enough money to be made below that. But again, if that's the kind of clientele you've got, invest the money, but then you need to have this equipment. This is the kind of profilers that you've got. SLR makes it. We've got and today VR virtual reality tools have also come into the market. So the work, unfortunately, does not stop here. We've got constant sale analysis has to take place. Inventory management and dispassionate purchase has to take place. Promoting the dispensary has to take place. Social media is a good way to engage patients. So in summary, I'd like to say, change your approach. You are the biggest hurdle. I have been the biggest hurdle to profits in my own clinic. You need to prescribe. It takes a certain amount of effort and time and money to be put into the thing. It's not a half-hearted thing. Please hire a professional. Unfortunately, professionals in this field are extremely short supply. Keep abreast of new products if you're getting into this, and it's okay to lose a few clients, it doesn't really matter. Spruce up the dispensary, and for whatever happens, control your inventory. Thank you.
I request Dr. Premraj to come up and present a memento to Mr. Rekhi.